Good evening, everybody. Today we're going to speak about the Rambam of today in chapter 10 talks about people who are invalid to be a witness. Now there's relatives, which is Torah talks about specifically that they're pasal min Torah.
The Gemara also we're dealing with it.
Right, if you learned of Yomi. Yeah. So there's certain types of relatives which are pasal min Torah. And in Rambam of today, chapter 10 of the Laws of Witnesses, it talks about Rishayim. Which types of Rishayim are pasal la'edus, are invalid as being witnesses min Torah. It brings a pasuk, and it says, Al tashis yadcha im rasha lios eid chamas. Don't place your hand with a rasha to be a witness together with him. In other words, we are prohibited to, if we know that someone is testifying and he's a harasha al pi Torah, we are prohibited to testify. If the Beit Din didn't necessarily know, you're not allowed to testify with him. From our sages we learn out that even an Eid Kosher who knows that his other friend is telling the truth, he is not allowed to participate in telling over a testimony with him because that person has the classification of a rasha. By him combining with him, he's giving tashis yadcha im rasha yosed chamas. He's combining with a rasha, and that's the Torah prohibits. Now, what is the definition of a pasal witness? Min Torah. The Rambam says very clearly, Kol mi sha'aver aver shechayven olam malkus harei ze rasha pasal le'edus. If they transgressed something which is asur min Torah, that means that the Torah says it's prohibited because we've learned in the past there's things which you get malchus for. Even more stringent would be misa bidei shamayim, spiritual death, and the worst would be like if in the times of the times of when they had the Sanhedrin where they had a capital punishment, that would be like the worst, right? But if you did any of these types of wicked acts, then you would be chayev as a rasha, and you would be pasol le'edus min Torah. Okay? Now usually that therefore means you have to also have witnesses warn you. And therefore the question comes, what if nobody knows? There's a whole discussion in the Acharonim about that. But if you know, you're really not allowed to testify. Okay? If your friend knows, he also is not allowed to testify with you. Now if it would be something which is medivrei sofrim, if you transgress something which was rabbinically forbidden, you are pasal min ha'edus mid'Rabbanan. However, with that, there's already a condition. The Rambam tells us that in such a case, they have to actually announce that you did this Isser, and therefore, if they didn't necessarily announce, it's not as stringent, and the rabbis won't invalidate your testimony after the fact. What I want to talk about really is gambling. Person who gambled, are they first of all doing something which is wrong?
What type of gambling?
Let's go into what type of gambling. And then after we can establish if it's forbidden, then we'll go back to the question about if it invalidates someone as a witness. Now let's talk about not a person going into a casino to gamble, because there you have other problems. It's a place which is not usually a kosher setting. It's not a right place to be. Let's talk about a simple question. He's gambling on, sports or online betting, online gambling. Betting and gambling are really the same thing. The Gemara talks in Sanhedrin about mesachek bekuvia. Mesachek bekuvia. A person who plays dice. But the truth of the matter is, it's very hard to differentiate between that and betting. Even sport teams, even if you want to say that there is logic in it, at the end of the day, no one knows how each athlete is going to do that day and the like. It's hard for me to differentiate between that and playing dice, gambling. So we're going to take the assumption that it is the same status. And therefore, we're not even talking about a person who goes into casinos, but they just gamble, they bet. What does the Alter Rebbe say in the laws of Hilchas Gzeila V'Gneva, the laws of stealing? And here's where he discusses it. He discusses gambling in two places. The laws of stealing, and then he also discusses the laws of witnesses. So what does the Alter Rebbe say in the laws of stealing? He says those that play dice, and they make a condition that whoever wins will get money. So the Alter Rebbe brings two opinions. One opinion is the Rambam. The Rambam in Hilchas Gneva V'Aveda. Over there, the Rambam says this is considered gezel midivreim, even if you won the bet and you get the money, it's considered stealing rabbinically, not biblically, rabbinically. Even though that you took it with the will of the other person because they made the bet. Here he's talking about between two Jews betting. He's not even talking about non-Jews. A Jew and another Jew betting. Okay, we'll see with a non-Jew it's a bit different. And he took it and it was with the Ratzin. In other words, they made the condition between each other. Since he took money in a way which was not really the correct way to make money. The correct way to money is to work. And to make money in this fashion is not working. It's considered stealing rabbinically. Now what if you were gambling with a non-Jew? So then, ein ba yisur gezel. It's not proper, but it's not considered stealing. It's not considered stealing rabbinically. But there is a different problem, which is called being involved with dvarim b'teim, which is also a prohibition of its own right. Wasting time and foolish vanities. What should a person involve himself in? Working, learning Torah, doing things which are proper. The Gemara brings this. Yishuva olam. See, after the Mabul, people were not involved before that with building the world, making it a proper place. They were just doing anything they wanted. And ultimately, a person who goes to casinos and stuff like that, first of all, it's an addiction usually. You get addicted to it, and even if you lose money, we see that people get addicted to it, and they lose their senses, and they lose their common sense. But even regardless of all that, you're not being involved in yeshiva olam of working and setting up the world in a proper way it needs to be, and therefore this is considered improper. And as the Alter Rebbe brings, the view of the Rambam, this is forbidden, and it's considered stealing midivrei seifrim. And even if it's with a non-Jew, because over there it's not considered stealing, because at the end of the day they did agree. See, it's stealing only if it's by a Jew, because there's an extra stringency. Why should they make that bet between them? It's not really stealing, because they did make a bet and they agreed upon it. But it's somewhat like stealing, because that's not the way that you're supposed to make money. With a non-Jew, even though they made the commitment, it's not considered stealing, even rabbinically, says the Rambam, because over there, at the end of the day, a deal is a deal. But the Rambam then says it's still not considered oisik in yeshuva olam, and it's therefore improper. This is the first view. The Alter Rebbe then brings a second view, which is the view of Tosfos, and also the Ramah in Hilchas Gzela. The second view says, The second view says, if you gamble with a Jew, sport bet, it's like gambling with a non-Jew. And just like we said earlier, it's not considered stealing, even rabbinically, if you gamble with a non-Jew. So too, it's not considered stealing rabbinically if you gamble with a Jew. According to the second view, this is Tosfos and the Ramah. And it's not considered stealing, not even rabbinically. So what's the problem then? But according to this view, it doesn't mean it's proper, but it just means it's not stealing. Okay. Then the Alter Rebbe continues, and two people who made any type of bet with each other, dinim k'misachakim bekuvia. It's the same thing as gambling with dice. It's a simple rule. Umikol makom, nonetheless, if they put the money in the hands of someone else, and if they didn't yet put the money in their hands, in other words, each person has the money in their pocket, says the Alter Rebbe, even according to the second view, that it's not considered stealing, you don't have to pay up. When do you have to pay? If the money was already on the table. Both put the money on the table and they say, okay, whoever wins is going to get. Then, the second view says it's not asur, it's not proper, but it's not absolutely stealing. But even to this second view, if they had the money in their pocket, they can say, I'm still not paying you. What is this? I agreed. I thought I would win. Everybody thinks they're going to win when they bet. So therefore, even the second view says you don't even have to give the money if you didn't take it out and put it on the table yet. They're allowed to retract. Okay, that's how he concludes off over there. I will mention, so what we had here was two views. The Rambam's view that it's not allowed and it's stealing when you do it with a Jew. And according to the Tosfos' view that it's not prohibited as stealing. Interestingly, the Alter Rebbe brings the second view as only, there are those that say he brings Yeshom. The first view he brings as Stam, as the main view. When we look in the Ramah, in the laws of Hilchas Gzela, Siman Shin Ayin, chapter 370, in Choshen Mishpat, he says actually the opposite. He says the main view is the second view. That if you were involved if you made a bet with someone, the Minaga Olam, is that it's not considered stealing. Just with one condition, as long as you have another job. You have to have another profession. So let's say you have a job and from time to time you like to do sports, betting on sports, or gambling from time to time, not in a casino, just between bets. Then, also in Siman Lamed Daled, the Smen Choshen Mishpat in Hilchos Eidus, and in Hilchos Gzela from the Ramah and Siman Shenayin, the Minig HaOlam is that he's not considered Gezel. And not only that, the Smen says you're not Pasol Eidus. You're not. Yeah, it's in the Daf Yom in Sanhedrin. But nonetheless, the Alter Rebbe seems to flip the order around. He seems to say that the second opinion, that if you do gamble with another person, seems that it's gezel. So we know that according to all opinions, it's not something proper to get involved in. And if you had to choose your witnesses for kiddushin or ksuba, it wouldn't be your first option. I would put it that way, to be very, speaking in a nice way. It wouldn't be your first option. I don't know if they had another job, though. It's hard to say that they're invalid. Because if they have another job, the minig olam, as the Rambam says, is that they're still kosher leidus, and they don't do it as a full-time thing. The Alter Rebbe seems a little stringent on this matter, nonetheless. Now let's go to what the Alter Rebbe says in Hilchos Eidus, to broaden a little more on this topic. And there he goes back to the general idea in Hilchos Eidus Sif Zayin.
What about Eter Iska?
No, so ribis, all that things, that would make him pasol leidus. Heteriska is heteriska. If it's permissible way of how it's done, then that's okay. Ultimately, every type of avera that a person does, if they were people who witnessed it, it's a problem. It's a problem to be to testify. In Siv Zayin it says, who is a rasha, which is pasol leidus min ha-Torah? Someone who did something which everybody knows is biblically forbidden. It's a avera she davar shu b'loisasei min ha-Torah. It's forbidden. Everybody knows it's forbidden. The Alter Rebbe thus, however, says something very interesting point, and this is to be a little lenient. I'm skipping a bit. He says, "Aval," it is very indecisive. However, if a person did, some rabbis say that this like internet is forbidden and could be an invalid witness. There's different, I'm not going to go into that. But the point is, there's plenty of things where people are doing which could make them invalid as witnesses. They're doing averas. Okay, so we'll finish right now. The Alter Rebbe says if they don't know that they're doing something wrong, he says. If they don't know that they're doing something that's forbidden, they're not pasul at all, even rabbinically.